Welcome to your Algebra 2 11.4 Select and Draw Conclusions from Samples video. So today you're going to choose and apply appropriate sampling methods. Okay, let's talk about some vocabulary first. A population is a group of people or objects about which you want to know something. A sample is a subset from a population. It is often too difficult, time-consuming, or expensive to survey everyone in a population, so a sample is used to represent the population. So there are certain types of samples. Your goal with your sample is for it to be representative of your population. So that's the goal. In a self-selected sample, also known as a voluntary response sample, members of a population can volunteer to be in a sample. Okay, so remember, our goal is for it to be representative. There's a big caution here. A self-selected sample might not be representative of the whole population. There might be something systematically different among those who volunteer and those who do not. Another type of sampling is called systematic sampling. In a systematic sample, a rule is used to select members of a population, such as selecting every other person or every third person, every fourth person, something along those lines. Now, if you have a list and there's nothing cyclical going on with your list that would cause something funny to happen, then it's fine. But that is one caution. If there is something cyclical about the listing used, then the group selected could be systematically different than the population at large. So let's say you were concerned, here's an example, you're concerned about the conditions of a senior home for one of your grandparents, and so you're going to go in and you're going to just check things out every 7th day. All right, so you start on Saturday. Well, that means you're going to go every Saturday. It could be that things are great on Saturday, okay, because the senior home realizes that families are most likely to come on the weekends, and so they really up their game on Saturdays and Sundays. But maybe if you visited like on a Wednesday or a Thursday, maybe things wouldn't be so clean, or maybe there's not as many staff on hand. So you have to be careful that if you're going to use a method like this, that there's nothing cyclical, like going every 7th day would mean you're going the same day of the week. If you went like maybe every 4th day or something, that might be okay, but you have to be careful with the systematic sample. Okay, in a convenience sample, easy to reach members of a population are selected, such as those in the first row. Well, those who are the easiest to reach likely different from the rest of the population. So let's use the first row example. So if you were going to talk to people about, it's a concert, let's say, and you're going to talk to people about how much they like the artist, well, people who are willing to pay money to be in the first row are systematically going to have a higher opinion than perhaps people who sit in the back row. If you're interested in people in general, not just the concert goers, the people who are in the front row of a concert are definitely going to have a different opinion than the people who don't think it's worth it to go to the concert at all. So that's what you have to be careful about that. Now, in a random sample, each member of a population has an equal chance of being selected. So this is our best hope for getting a representative sample. Representative samples are what we want because they are unbiased. In other words, we are getting a fair idea about the population from the sample. An unbiased sample is representative of the population. A biased sample is not representative of the population. It overrepresents one part of the population while it underrepresents another part of the population. This means your results will be systematically misleading. Okay, so let's look at some examples. A sports writer wants to survey college baseball coaches about whether they think wooden bats should be mandatory throughout college baseball. Identify the type of sample described. Okay, so for part A, it says the sports writer contacts only the coaches that he has cell phone numbers for in order to get quick responses. Well, that's a convenient sample. Yeah, it's certainly convenient for him, but it could be that the coaches he knows either systematically favor it more often than coaches in general, or favor it less often than coaches in general. Okay, just it may be that he's not going to get a representative sample. All right, the sports writer mails out surveys to all the coaches and uses only the surveys that are returned. Okay, well, in this case, the people self-select that they're going to be in the sample, so that's a self-selected sample or voluntary response sample. And usually, one thing that happens with a self-selected sample is that people with the strongest opinions are more likely to volunteer. Okay. Also, especially if they're the ones that are like demanding a change or have a negative opinion. All right, let's look at another example. The manager of a concert hall wants to know how often people in the community attend concerts. The manager asks 50 people standing in line at a rock concert how many concerts per year they attend. Tell whether the sample is biased or unbiased. Explain your reasoning. Well, this is going to be a biased sample because people standing in line for a concert are more likely to attend concerts than people in general. For example, people who never attend concerts are systematically excluded from this sample. So you're going to get a biased sample, and your estimate is likely to be a higher number of concerts than what would be true for the entire population. All right, so another example. You are a member of the prom committee. You want to poll members of the senior class to find out where they want to hold the prom. There are 120 students in the senior class. Describe a method for selecting a random sample of 40 seniors to poll. So we want everybody to have the same chance of being selected. All right. I would write the names of all the seniors on identical pieces of paper. I would put all the slips of paper in a giant hat, mixing them well. I would pull out slips of paper one at a time without looking until I have 40 names. All right, guys, this pulling names out of a hat, that is like the classic way of coming up with a random sample. All right. Now, sometimes people want to know, well, how many people do I need to survey? Well, it depends on how wrong you are willing to be. As the sample size increases, the margin of error decreases. So it costs time and money to have a larger sample size. So there's a tension here between wanting to have a small margin of error and the amount of time and money you have to actually conduct the survey. The margin of error is equal to plus or minus 1 over the square root of n, where n is your sample size. So in a survey of 1,011 people, 52% said that television is their main source of news. First thing we're going to do is we're going to determine the margin of error for the survey, and then we're going to use that margin of error to answer part B. We're going to give an interval that is likely to contain the exact percent of all people who use television as their main source of news. Okay, so we are saying that the margin of error is going to be plus or minus 1 over the square root of n, and so that's going to be plus or minus 1 over the square root of 1,011. We plug that into our handy dandy calculator and we round it to be plus or minus 0.031. Okay, there's roughly a 3.1% margin of error. Okay, so to do our interval, what we're going to do is we're going to take that 0.31 and we're going to convert it to 3.1% by moving that decimal over 2 places. And then we're going to take the estimate we got from our survey, 52%, we're going to subtract 3.1% to get a lower bound of 48.9%, and then we're going to add 3.1% to get 55.1%, and that's our upper bound. So our interval is 48.9% to 55.1%. Okay, so a polling company conducts a poll for a U.S. presidential election. How many people did the company survey if the margin of error is plus or minus 5%? Well, let's use our formula. So plus or minus 0.05. So when you put it in the formula, you need to convert it back to decimal form. So 2 decimal places to the left, or divide by 100, whichever way you want to think of that, is going to equal plus or minus 1 over square root of n. Okay, so first thing we're going to do is get rid of that square root by squaring both sides. Plus or minus 0.05 squared is going to, whether you started with positive or negative, going to come out to be positive 0.0025. 1 squared is 1. Square root of n squared is n. Now we are going to cross multiply, essentially. We're going to, or you can think of it as multiplying both sides by n, and we get 0.0025 times n equals 1. Now we need to divide both sides by 0.0025, and we get n equals 400. And so there were 400 people surveyed. Okay, that's it. So go ahead and do those problems to try on your own. Again, if they've got you stumped, come in and see me. Otherwise, I will see you in class. Thank you. Have a good day.